Milo, is that you?
There, I think I got it. Okay, so before we get started, Ralph, we're gonna introduce you. So don't say anything; just stay in the green room while we introduce you. Even though I turned the microphone on 20 seconds ago, stay in the green room anyways. Please and thank you.
You just tell me when.
All right, stay in the green room now.
Jeez.
All right, so tonight is going to be really, really interesting tonight and tomorrow. This is a two-parter, and we have the whole gang here because everybody should be talking to this guy because this is going to be really interesting. So we have Marcus Newbacher, the AML Nation's most eligible bachelor. We have Chris Wayman.
Everyone.
Hello, we have Chris Wayman all the way from Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Good evening.
It's not technically Chattanooga, is it?
Ringgold, Georgia.
Right.
5 miles from the Tennessee line.
Oh, really, eh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And what's the next state? South Carolina?
To the east would be South Carolina. North is Tennessee. West is Alabama, but we don't like anybody from Alabama.
Right. But you're 5 miles from South Carolina then?
No, from Tennessee.
Oh, from Tennessee. Oh, yeah, because you're in Chattanooga is where?
Well, Chattanooga is in Tennessee. I live in North Georgia, basically a suburb, because Chattanooga is kind of right on the state line.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm in the Chattanooga, what shall we say, metropolitan area.
So you're a Georgia boy.
My driver's license says I live in the state of Georgia.
There you go. All right. And Marcus, you're from like Chicken Run, North Carolina or something?
Yeah, Chicken Run. That's exactly right. Or China Grove.
China Grove. Okay. Well, yeah, Chicken Run, China Grove.
Is that a Doobie Brothers song?
Yeah, exactly.
It is. Yeah.
I feel like that's not a very endearing description. Chicken Run, North Carolina. It's not. Yeah.
Well, China Grove. I'm interested. I wonder how they came up with that. I wonder how they came up with China Grove in South Carolina. It's North Carolina. North Carolina. Yeah. Like how would they come up with China Grove in North Carolina?
I don't know the answer to that. The song China Grove is not named for this China Grove, though.
Oh, there's a song.
You know that, but Doobie Brothers, China Grove. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Look at that. Maybe it was. Maybe the Doobies lived there or something, or not. I didn't even know there was a China Grove song.
It was a fictionalized version of the town of China Grove, Texas, and a quirky sheriff.
What? That's the song?
That's the song it's about. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
The wacky little town with a sheriff carrying a samurai sword is a product of the writer's imagination.
When the sun comes up on a sleepy little town down around San Antone, and the folks are arising for another day round there about their homes. 1973. Look at that. We've learned something.
And China Grove, North Carolina was one of the first towns in the U.S. to have a rural-free mail delivery. So that's a distinction that we have. And according to what I just read here, a rural-free mail delivery.
What does that mean?
That was RFD, like Mayberry RFD.
Yeah. No, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm Canadian.
Okay. I'm Canadian. So, the other thing is we had a bunch of China berry trees planted near the depot, and that's where the name came from.
Okay, so what do you mean? What was the thing about the mail?
Rural free delivery.
Rural free. So if you lived in the rural, you didn't get mail?
Since 1906, officially rural delivery is a program in the United States Post Office Department to deliver mail directly to rural destinations.
Yeah. So I wonder why they put rural free? Because it sounds like if you're in the rural, you don't get it. Very peculiar. I'm very confused. Anyways, China Grove spent 8 weeks in the top 40. In 2010, examination of the master recording tape for that track by recording engineer Chris Basford revealed that, as most bands did at the time, the band played together while tracking in the studio instead of overdubbing the instrumental instruments. Yeah, that's the only way it should be done, is why everybody plays together.
You know, I was going to say it sounded like that. I'm glad that the experts agree.
Yeah, that's the way we do our podcast, right? Everybody's in the studio together.
Yeah.
We tried overdubbing it, but
Yeah. There is a China Grove, Texas, I found out.
oh, is there? What's the population?
Let's see if they say anything. It's under.
The China Grove song uses the clave rhythm. Lead singer and songwriter Tom Johnson plays the distinctive opening guitar riff.
Oh,
Well, you'll have to find a knockoff of that from YouTube. Won't you?
Yeah, exactly. I think we could probably go with the original and nobody would notice.
No, that's a pretty popular song.
Is it?
Yeah.
But it only made it to the top 40.
Yeah, but it's how long lasting it is. That's the important part.
Okay.
I guess not in Canada.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
The song reached number 15 on the U.S. Billboard Hot 100.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like there's a couple of songs by... There's a song by Herman's Hermits that was unbelievably popular in Canada, like was number one and never even caught on in the States. And I always think to myself, if I go down to Buffalo and I stand on the Canadian side where Buffalo is, I'm thinking, well, how could it not be popular on the other side of this quarter-mile bridge? Right. Like you could almost hear it from where we're standing. Who else have we got? Who else haven't we introduced? We introduced Marcus. We introduced Chris. Okay, then we got Ralph. Oh no, he's the guest.
Oh, he's in the green
He's
room.
the guest, yeah. And we got David Lund. He's probably left by now.
Yeah, or he's eating that shrimp.
Yeah, I would guess he's probably.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah, David Lund, all the way from the Chicago suburb of Whiting, Illinois.
Indiana. Whiting, Indiana.
Oh yeah, right. I keep getting that mixed up. And then we got Derek.
Yeah.
All the way from
Hey, everybody.
Birmingham. Have you been to Hueytown and taken your picture yet in front of the Hueytown sign?
I've definitely driven past the highway exit for Hueytown.
He's getting close.
Well, here's the problem. So the sign going west on my way to the office doesn't say Hueytown. It says like Bessemer. But then coming east away from my office, coming home at the end of the day when I'm mentally fried and I put in a good day's work, there's a sign that says Hueytown. And so I've often thought on my way on the morning, today in the afternoon, I have to stop and take a picture of the Hueytown sign for Lionel. And every day, well, I only go to the office like 2 days a week. So twice a week, I drive past that sign and I forget. And I'm going 80 in the left lane and I can't get over to take a picture. So
I didn't realize Hueytown was right next to Bessemer. I used to go there for work. Not Hueytown, but Bessemer.
I think Hueytown's a little off the highway. So Hueytown's like, I think, north of 2059, like north of Bessemer, maybe by like 8 miles north of Bessemer.
Looks like it, almost west.
Yeah. So where do you live? Somewhere south? You live somewhere southwest of Birmingham?
Oh, no, I live in the city of Birmingham.
Oh, the office is down there somewhere.
Yep, that's right.
Okay. The office is in McCullough?
It's not in McCullough. Actually, our global headquarters is in Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Oh, how long does it take you to get to Tuscaloosa?
About 55 minutes on a slow day. So I go out there once a week, maybe twice, as they need me.
Okay.
Which is usually, I'm useless, so usually that's never.
So what's Hueytown famous for?
The Alabama gang.
Attaboy. Comprised of?
Some people that did some things with some race cars.
Donnie Allison.
Oh, come on. Stop making me look bad.
Bobby Allison.
Davey Allison.
Davey Allison. Marcus.
Neil Bonnet.
Neil Bonnet. And finally, probably the most infamous but famous member of the Alabama gang in Hueytown, Alabama was Red Farmer. And who
was what?
Red Farmer is his name. He's still alive. He's about 82, I think, and he still races. So that's
good. That's if you said that I know a NASCAR driver, guess his name, I'd probably say Red Farmer.
There you go.
That makes a lot of sense. He's on brand.
Absolutely. It's like China Grove.
And there was a tiny Lund, but he was not part of the Alabama gang.
Was he from Hueytown?
No, he wasn't. He was from Iowa.
Well, if we're just going to start yelling out names,
Well, it was just a-
Dave. There was Dave Marcus and Bobby Isaac, and
Yeah.
that doesn't make any sense.
And the race car driver simply known as Kelly.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And
No, I do the speed. I do the speed tests. I do the radar tests.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
finally,
that's right.
the last person we have to introduce is Kelly, the modeler simply known as Kelly.
Hello.
There you go. Okay, and now we'll get our guest in here because this is going to be really cool. So, Ralph, come on into the studio.
Hey guys,
Hi. Speak up.
Hello.
Don't be
good to be
shy.
with you.
Yeah, don't be shy. Speak up.
Really?
He's probably fallen asleep in the green room as long as that took.
Yeah.
He ate the shrimp. That's what happened.
Yeah.
So Ralph is are you the middle generation of these third generation? Three
I
generations?
am. Yeah, my father before me and my daughter after me.
Okay. Are you close to the microphone?
I am.
Okay, that's good. Sounds good right there. Okay, so guys, I don't know how much I've told you about this, but one night, as we all have a tendency to do, you're scrolling through the internet and you go to Google and Google says, hey, check out Hawkins Rails. So I click on it and it's this unbelievable website collection of rail fanning photos that spans how many years, Ralph?
75 at this point.
75 years, 3 generations, your father, then you, and now your daughter.
That's right.
Wow. That's
My
unbelievable.
father took his first photograph of a train in 1948.
Yeah, you told me that
And-
story before. What was that story? Like how old was he when he took his first photograph?
Yeah, he was a teenager. I think 16. My dad grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana, born in 1933. And the brief story is, like a lot of families in wartime, they didn't have an automobile. His parents didn't get a car until he was in his teenage years. They took public transportation, streetcars especially. And when they did get a car, though, my grandfather, for whom I'm named, actually, his name was Ralph, he loved to take Sunday drives. They'd go to church and then have lunch, and then they'd hit that car and go driving around the city. And one day they crossed the Mississippi River on the Huey P. Long Bridge, which still exists, railroad and highway bridge, shared structure. When they got to the West Bank, they were just tooling around in a community called West Wego. And they're going down some road, and there was a junkyard. And my dad, who was already into trains at that point, just not taking any pictures because he didn't really have any equipment, spotted a little dinky switcher like a 040 or an 060 that probably was the little shunter for the scrapyard, right? And he convinced his parents to pull over. And my grandmother had a Kodak Brownie camera, which you may know was sort of a very entry level little cheap camera of the day. And he snapped a couple photos, and I sort of think of those as the beginning of the hobby, at least in terms of rail fan photography. So, and naturally, poetically, that little engine was number one. So that kind of worked out nicely in hindsight, but it's a great little story. My dad used to love to talk about that.
Ralph, is that the picture that you have on the industrial section of your website?
It probably is, yeah. Let me pull that one up and see which one you're thinking of.
Yeah, pull that one up and see if we're thinking of the same thing.
Oh, up at the top. No, that was a little gravel pit operation in Louisiana in the 50s. And that was one of those Brookville industrial locomotives that were hilariously small, 4 wheels, I think, little gasoline motor, and they pulled a gondola or two at a time out to the Illinois Central. But I love that photo. And that's my dad's car in that picture. So that's kind of fun too. But that came a little later in the 50s.
And so I mean, this is probably going to take multiple podcasts to even try to understand what you people have done here. Well, yeah, because I think if I went around the room, I think all of us who have looked at this website are probably completely blown away. I mean, Chris, had you ever seen this website before?
No, I hadn't. No, I'm checking it out right now, actually.
Right. Marcus, had you ever seen it before?
I have. There are some great historical photos of the North Carolina Transportation Museum on here. So I'm kind of close to that operation. So I've actually looked at those a few times.
How about you, David? Had you ever seen it before?
No, not until you mentioned it, and it's just so extensive. I was thinking to myself, it's kind of like the Hawkins is sort of like the Forrest Gumps of railroading. They've just been at all.
Forrest Gump.
They've been at all the right key moments to get the photos.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, it's hard to believe in a couple of years, the website will have been up 20 years, which,
Wow.
all of us on this call, we've all sort of come of age with the internet, right? And so there was a time when you thought nothing's been on the web for more than, a little short time. And yet here we are coming up on 2 decades. So it's kind of fun to think about.
I'm not sure what you mean by all of us on this call, because we're all in the studio around big table in Busted Knuckle, Kentucky. So
exactly.
Yeah. I guess what you meant is on this broadcast.
Yes.
Kelly, had you ever seen this website?
I've never seen this website, but I'm impressed with it, especially because of the categories they've got there. They got steam, short lines, industrial, main lines, streetcars, preservation, and modeling, which is actually broken down into different types of modeling.
Yeah, it's just so well organized.
That's the whole point. And Derek, had you ever seen it before?
No, you told me about it a couple months ago, and I just started looking at it and kept looking at it. And what struck me is a lot of railfan photo websites are just like, here's a picture, and maybe you get a date and place. But this website was different, not only because of the level of detail, but also the level of heart that went into each page. You didn't just get a picture of a locomotive, but you kind of got a story, and on some of the railroads, like an explanation of who the people are, and it really got an idea of the personality behind the railroads. And I think part of that also goes towards the passion that the Hawkins family has had to get to know these people, not just take a picture and leave, but really understand who they are, the very human side of railfanning.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I apologize in advance, Ralph, because there's going to be several questions over the podcast where it sounds like I'm insulting you, but it's not meant to be. It's actually a question. I'm just not that good at phrasing them.
No problem.
This, I must say, this is impressive. I mean, I'm speechless looking at this website. I live in Georgia. I clicked on
that is something.
We're all speechless that you're speechless.
Yeah. So I look at, I live here in North Georgia, and I just was clicking through Georgia, and it says, I clicked on the short line called the Chattooga and Chickamauga Railway, which is right down the road. And I just click on it, and there's a picture of it and all this history, and holy cow, there's so much roster and where it goes and the buildings. I mean, it's crazy. This is
you and I are practically neighbors. I'm in the middle part of the state, and Warner Robin, so not too far from you at all.
Yeah. No, this is fantastic.
Well, and you should know, Ralph, that Chris Wayman, who was just talking there, is a prolific videographer of doing railfan videography, and has been published I counted over 4 dozen videos produced by Green Frog Productions. And he's very humble about it, and he'll barely tell you. You got to like beat it out of him. I think, Chris, the first time I tried to count them all up, you went, really? There's that many?
Yeah. What, really? No kidding.
So those are, and so I'm looking at the About You. Like, I mean, we could just go through the About Us part.
Yeah.
And I mean, that'll take up so your dad started when he was a teenager.
That's right. In New Orleans.
And
y'all know New Orleans is still, and especially then, was a phenomenal railroad town, right? So he was just immersed in 7 fallen flag railroads, we'd now call them, plus the streetcar system, which, he became a lifelong fan of, in part because they used it as a family, as regular transportation. And then, of course, the New Orleans Public Belt switching railroad. So there was just trains everywhere in the 30s and 40s. And, he really came of age and all of that. And it just really took for him really all transportation. He was a lover of automobiles as well, planes, ships, but there's no question that trains and trolleys were paramount for him. He had an uncle that worked for the Illinois Central, and they would ride up the IC a lot to a little town called Ponchatoula, Louisiana, across the lake, and see the family. And so they rode a fair amount of trains. So it just all kind of coalesced in his mind and heart as just a fascination, and really took him the rest of his life. and just enjoyed traveling. And so I came along in the 70s, and like my two older siblings before me, they tagged along with Dad as well. But when they got to a certain age, they were kind of done with it. But for me, it really stuck, and we had just had great fun throughout my childhood, going all over the place, and modeling as well. My dad was not only a rail fan and a photographer, but a 2-rail O-scale guy, and so he had a couple different O-scale layouts over the years that he really enjoyed working on. So yeah, we were all in, and still are.
Do you have a microphone or a headset?
I have a microphone.
Now, well, quit leaning back, would you? Because it kind of sounds like this sometimes when you're talking, and it gets a little quieter. And we got to hear everything that you say. We can hear it all, but it sounds like you're singing a song or something. Can you sing it all, Ralph?
I do not sing.
Okay, there you go.
Especially on podcasts.
Don't
Not
worry.
even Doobie Brothers?
Yeah. Do the Doobie Brothers.
Don't worry, Ralph. Nobody's listening to this, so
Yeah.
you're all good. But I think one of the interesting things is your dad was in the right place at the right time to capture some of the last running steam, especially in the Southeast on some of these short lines in the 60s and 70s. Like,
Yeah.
do you have a sense that you probably have cataloged like a significant piece of railroad history and industrial history? Like, this is not just like a rail fan website. This is primary source historical research. I mean, this is important stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, he did. He fell in love with short lines early on. And of course, the South was full of them in the 40s and 50s, the lumber industry, the gravel industry, other sorts of industries as well. And I guess probably in the mid 50s, he started, wandering as a rail fan. In other words, making deliberate trips to different places and began to photograph all things, motive power, rolling stock, whatever. But particularly, as with so many then and now, I had a love for steam engines. And yeah, I mean, I think, steam hung on in the South a little longer. As the economics in the South maybe were different, and there were reasons to try to eke out these old steamers longer. So, certainly through the 50s, but even well into the mid and late 60s, there were some pockets of steam still running, and he made several trips with some buddies to document. I even have a little bit of 8mm movie that he shot, silent movie on a kind of creaky Bell and Howell camera, but those are super fun. I'll give you one example. Down in South Alabama, it was a lumber processing plant that actually still exists, T.R. Miller Mill Products in Bruton, Alabama, and they had an extensive plant. And one of the things they did is they made telephone poles out of trees, right? And so they had rail service out to the L&N. And they had a series of steam engines over the years, but by the late 60s, they still had 2 steam engines that they were using on a regular basis every day to switch this mill. And, as the 60s roll along and steam was really going away, word got around all over the South that they were still running this beautiful pair of steamers. And it got so popular, rail fans were showing up down there that on the weekends, the crew just would pull out the steamer and run a couple of cars back and forth down the long industrially. They had a lead that maybe went about 1.5 miles back into the woods to a second plant. And so they would just run these little mini excursions all on Saturday. And my father said, man, there were, a dozen, 20, 25 people out there sometimes on a Saturday. So I've got wonderful pictures of all of that. And people recognize, people like us recognized that this was not going to last forever. And of course it didn't. I think in 68, 69, they finally got rid of their steam locomotives, got some GE center cab switchers. But anyway, yes, to your point, he had a nose for those sorts of places and did the best he could with a full-time job and 3 kids, to get around the South and photograph some things. And I'm really grateful for that. And that's really what set this website in motion, actually. When he gave me his big box of negatives and prints and said, look, I don't know what you want to do with these, but I certainly don't want to throw them away. And I started going through them, and I thought to myself, wow, there really are some treasures. I sort of had the same experience you just mentioned a minute ago. I mean, I had seen a lot of these photos, obviously, growing up, but there were many that I'd never seen before. And I thought to myself, man, these really are treasures. So that really is what first prompted the idea of building a site, was to showcase some of that. And then, obviously, as the years have gone along, we've expanded greatly. But yeah, Deep South Steam, that was a particular love of his, and the people who, through a great deal of ingenuity, kept these old kettles running, long after their normal lifespan.
I think Go ahead, Derek. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, was as the railroads changed, I mean, I'm guessing he lived through the transition era into like the diesel era. Did his interests wane, or did they change as the railroads fundamentally changed? I mean, between acquisitions and equipment changes, like, saw a lot. Was he still a consistent rail fan through that whole process?
Yeah, 100%. Didn't wane at all. He, my dad was an electrical engineer and was just a naturally mechanically minded person. And so I think as much as he loved steam, he also loved diesels, frankly. I mean, he was not one to sort of, poo-poo the diesel. You still hear some of that. Oh, the diesel's ruined everything, whatever. No. I think he embraced it all. And he from a kind of a mechanical engineering standpoint, the diesel, particularly first generation stuff, right? I mean, when this stuff was all brand new and had a lot of bugs and issues that all the railroads were trying to work out. And he was genuinely fascinated by that. As a, for instance, one of the railroads he really fell in love with in the South is the Columbus and Greenville Railway in Mississippi that spans the state between its namesake cities, Columbus in the east, Greenville on the Mississippi River in the west. Well, in many ways, just a kind of podunk rural short line. Well, I say rural, traversing a lot of rural land in between these relatively backwater Mississippi cities and towns. Well, turns out the C&G, thanks to a thoughtful master mechanic they hired, was one of the first roads in the South to dieselize. And not only that, they were literally the first customer of Baldwin to get a Baldwin diesel road switcher on not only a short line, but a main line. In other words, their 601 was Baldwin's first factory shipped road switcher ever, anywhere. To Mississippi, of all places, right? To a backwater railroad that had nearly gone bankrupt several times already in its history by the 40s when this thing arrived. Well, they wound up buying 6 of these locomotives. And so they had this little fleet of these wonderful, relatively cantankerous Baldwin road switchers. Many of you are probably familiar. Speaking of bugs, those things had a lot of issues to work out. But boy, they kept those locomotives for a couple decades. And my father was just fascinated by these Baldwins. They had, they had air throttles and pneumatic MU systems. They communicated to one another on throttle control and all that through air, right? And the Columbus and Greenville shops had to work out some sort of homespun electrical connections to make them work. My point is, Dad loved all of that, and so he wound up documenting that whole era of the Baldwin era of Mississippi shortline railroading, and I've got all of that on my site. So those were the kinds of things that kept his interest. And so even though he loved steam, really, who doesn't, right? Nevertheless, I think he found diesels very interesting and fascinating, and enjoyed seeing the first generation roll out.
You know what this seems like to me? This seems like when you talked about that lumber yard that built telephone poles and you said that they had steam locomotives into the 60s, I thought of the Buffalo Creek and Golly Railroad. Yeah. And so then I went to see if on your short list of short lines you had the Buffalo Creek and Golly, and sure enough you did. And there's one photo here that's from Dunton, West Virginia. And so, did your dad take that photo?
No, that's a collection. I actually don't have a lot. I wish I had more on the Buffalo Creek and Golly. What a great little road. No, he took a lot of photos, but he bought a lot of negatives and prints over the years too, just things that interest him. And so I have a lot of that on there as well. I always try to mark it to make it clear, that's not something we took, but it's something we own, and it fits the overall themes, that he and I both have been interested in over the years. No, he really didn't venture much out of the Deep South. A few trips. He and my mom took the California Zephyr in 1969, which was a great trip. He has photos from, he went to Seattle once, but for the most part, his rail fanning was focused on the deep South of his own upbringing. Grew up in New Orleans, lived in Huntsville, Alabama for 25 years, did a lot of rail fanning in northern Alabama and Tennessee, Chattanooga. Lived in Dallas for a few years, Pensacola for. So they got around a little bit, but all in the South, pretty much.
So, anyways, what I was going to say was this is like finding a hobby shop, some hobby shop that's been there for years. It's packed full of stuff, and you almost don't know which way to turn because there's so much information on here. Because you go to the Buffalo Creek and Gully page that you have. Okay, there's one photo of a 280 Constellation from 1957, but then you have links. You have Brooke Stouffer's Buffalo Creek and Gully website, so I go there, and that's quite handy, and the AmericanRails.com. So you have this, you've created this intensive library of knowledge that is almost, it's overwhelming as far as I can. It's just there's so much information on it. So how did you? So you started. You were obviously the one of your siblings that was interested in it, and you started traveling with your dad. There's a picture on the About Us page from when you were standing in front of Illinois. What is it? Illinois. It's what is it? Don't tell me. It's an Illinois Central, isn't it? I'm going Illinois Central locomotive, and you look like you're about, 12 or 13 there.
Yeah, something like that.
And so, when did you start taking photos?
Yeah, I tagged along with my old man since I could walk. My mom tells stories of my dad scooping me up as a toddler and taking me down to the Southern Railway station in Huntsville to see what the local switcher was doing. So even though I don't remember that, I got started early. Yeah, pictures, though, they came along, I don't know. I was probably 10, 11, 12. And by that time, my dad had gotten a 35 millimeter film camera. And I say that because for decades he shot, if you know anything about film negatives, 120, which is a 2x2 square negative. Mm-hmm. Makes gorgeous enlargements, assuming the original was nice and crisp because you got this huge negative organ. But by the time I was a kid, he was still using that camera. But he had also bought a 35 millimeter, and he was great. I mean, my dad was a great dad, and he would let me take some photos, and he'd teach me, and and so I kind of got started with that, and as the years went along, enjoyed taking photos myself, and then they kind of went off to college and grad school and did some of that. Didn't do much in the way of photography, but as soon as I sort of got established after school, and by then digital was coming around, and I've sort of never looked back. And so, as we all know, digital, has the propensity to produce a lot of images. But in terms of website, though, that works out pretty well.
And then your daughter got involved. How did that come about?
Yeah, my daughter's going to be 21 this year. And, I would take her places, but I was mindful when she was little not to wear her out with it. I didn't want it to become something that was, oh, no, not another train trip or museum or something. So try to be a little judicious about it. But she tagged along and we did some things. But then in her teenage years, she kind of developed her own interest in photography and visual arts. In fact, she's studying theater production as a young woman now. So she has an extremely creative, talented side. And so she, in her teenage years, one day I was planning a trip with a beloved rail fan buddy. We try to go out at least annually somewhere. And she said, "Hey, Dad, can I come along?" And I said, well, of course, So what I'm pleased about is she sort of found her own way into it, and I think now that she's a young woman, a young adult, she really appreciates and wants to honor my dad's legacy too. She's at an age where that's something of a value to her. So her own creativity, her interest in photography, the family history with it, you put all that together, she's turning out to be a great rail fan. We have a lot of fun. And I count that as a privilege because I certainly recognize that not every dad can say, that his kid is interested in the hobby, much less a daughter. That's not altogether common, but I'm grateful. We had a lot of fun. So,
you use the word judicious there a minute ago you said the word judicious.
That's a big word.
Yeah. So we kind of have a rule here to try to keep our words to 2 syllables.
Okay.
If possible.
That's all right, because I don't even remember saying it, so I'll just trust it.
I'm still Googling it to try to find out what it means.
Gonna dumb it down quite a bit, right?
Whoa.
Wow.
You are a dim-witted brother, right? So, or half-witted brother, or whatever it was. So, this website is amazing. I mean, I'm just sitting here as we talk and just going through all the rabbit holes that you could go down on this website and how detailed it is. It must have taken you, and it must take you tons of time to keep this updated because you have really recent things here. And I mentioned the museum, the North Carolina Transportation Museum. I work there, and there are photos from April.
I was just there
this in May, and there's photos from
2 months
April.
ago. Yeah, I try to swing through there once a year. I love that place. Y'all do such a good job there, and my dad loved it too. He made a number of trips there. As a side note, my dad was involved in the Southern Railway Historical Association for years and was president for a handful of years, but did a lot of modeling articles for Ties magazine and that sort of thing. So he loves Spencer, and we went together a couple times. He went on his own a bunch. I've been on my own. So yeah, great place. So good to know of your connections there.
Did you hear that, Marcus? He loves that place.
I said it's great. That we really appreciate the compliment.
That Atlantic Coastline E-unit, that might be the prettiest diesel I've ever laid eyes on. That thing is amazing.
So, Ralph, the next time you go to the North Carolina Transportation Museum, you basically know one of the big shots there.
Yeah.
Marcus is one of the big shots. You can just ask for Marcus Newbacher.
Yeah.
And
absolutely,
he might give you a discount.
Yeah, especially if you wear a polar bear suit.
You guys are so screwed up. We've barely mentioned that. We've barely met the gentleman, and you're talking about his polar. I'm just trying to hook him up with Marcus because Marcus will roll out the red carpet for him and be happy.
Yeah, he will.
Yeah.
Kelly, don't scare him away.
Yeah, Kelly, you're scaring him away. Now he's thinking, what a polar bear suit? What are you talking about? So am I speaking out of turn, Marcus, or should he contact you the next time he wants to come over there?
Absolutely, he should. He definitely should. So I'd like to get a chance to meet him. Like I said, I've looked at this website a lot. You know, there was some discussion about our GP30 2601, and we were looking. Somebody asked a question about why does the 2601 have the SOU sublettering under the number, which is common in the Norfolk Southern era, but wasn't in the Southern era.
Right.
And so, I know why. I know that when Norfolk Southern painted it, they just put that on there because they were doing that at the time. But I actually went back and looked for photos to kind of, and it was on this website that I found photos of the locomotive pretty close to when it was delivered and before it got painted and before it got the new lettering and so forth. So it's a very useful tool for sure.
I'm so glad. That pleases me. I mean, one of my goals has been to make it a resource particularly for modelers. I'm not currently modeling, though I love modeling because I grew up with it. And but I value the resources people want for, details of locomotives and places and that sort of things. And I've tried to keep an eye on that, in my photography and building the site. My dad loved Southern GP30s. He was in Huntsville, Alabama in the 60s. And of course, that's the busy line from Chattanooga over to Memphis, right? Goes through Huntsville. And when the GP30s came out on the Southern, they would run them in trios and quads on that line. With some of the hot shot freights to Memphis, and I've just got a ton of great black and white photos of his of 30s, rolling through Huntsville and with piggybacks and all the stuff, So he had a real fondness for that particular engine.
I don't even know where to go next, other than
I just finished up going through the whole gallery section. Holy crap! There's so much stuff. Now on the gallery, look under gallery. It'll take you a while to get through it.
That's kind of more of our artsy, poetic Ralph, kind of stuff.
Yeah, on Ralph, on some of those, it has artwork done by you. Is that something you do as a job?
No, not at all. Just a hobby. I enjoy digital photography and digital imagery work. I do a lot of Photoshop stuff and enjoy, taking photos and kind of running with them a little bit. And feeds my creative side. My daughter's very good at that too. We've enjoyed kind of getting into that together.
So does your daughter work on the website, or you do it by yourself?
The website I do by myself, but she has gotten to where she does photography. I tell you what she does for us. She pretty much all the video. We don't have a lot of video. I'm still pretty much a still photo guy, but I love video. And she takes a lot of video when we go out rail fanning and riding. And so she started to put together her own little video packages, and we've got all those on our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel pales in comparison to a lot of great channels out there, but we've got some things, and she's done a great job with that. So I've sort of let her become the video part of the team, and I still take, like a dinosaur, still take photos, but it's all good. And so that's how that works. But I work on the site myself, and that's another piece of my story. I kind of fell in love with computers as a teenager too, again, coming of age with all of this, and enjoyed learning back in the days of BASIC and Pascal, when we all had to take computer classes in school and we're, learning these very simple things, but it really kind of took for me. So the website has been great because the convergence of a lifelong love of trains, an interest in programming and then photography, you put all that together. It's really been a happy labor of love over the years.
Well, the layout of the website with all the graphics and you've got a letter that is there with some other photos that scrapbook type. And I know you've referenced it as a scrapbook in a lot of ways. It's very obvious that you know what you're doing with all that. So all of the content is just awesome. And I have a little inside information, and I thought maybe someone would like to hazard a guess at how many images are on this website at this time.
That's right. Yeah, I do. I do post that.
I'll start counting.
I'm going to take a guess. I think it's 65,998.
Well, you're awful close.
Oh, damn, I was so close.
66,001.
75. Let me try photo localities. 1,508.
You may have to refresh your browser cache.
That's right.
But you're close. You're super close. Yeah, I know it's hard to believe, and I'm excited about. So I'm inching towards 1,000 web pages.
1,000 web pages. You have
pages.
Wow.
Pages.
Wow. Pages. Yeah.
Who hosts the site?
I just pay HostGator, one of the big hosting sites.
HostGator. Okay.
But this is kind of funny. When I got started, another minister. I'm a Presbyterian minister by day. Another minister friend has a big side hustle as a web hoster, and he hosted my site for probably a decade, really for free. It was very generous of him. And of course, when it started out, it was small, but by the time we got to a decade, I was regularly crowding out his servers, and finally I just said, I've presumed upon your generosity enough, so I kind of just did like everybody else and bought some space on a.
How do you keep 987 pages even straight? Like I think the AML website is like 8 or 9 pages, and I'm having trouble keeping it straight.
Well, and what's worse is that I pretty much write it all by hand, by which I mean, I kind of bang most of it out on the keyboard. I don't really use software that manages the site.
Really?
Because that sort of feeds the nerd in me a little bit. So, yeah, the HTML, the CSS, the JavaScript, and all that, most of it's built from the ground up. If you know anything about websites, I do use Bootstrap, which is a great CSS platform. So there is some external code in it. My nephew is a professional software engineer, and he put me onto Bootstrap, and that's been a game changer. But otherwise, it's pretty much all homegrown, if that's even makes sense in terms of a website.
These guys will confirm that I'm often talking about Bootstrap.
Yeah, and CSS
and
stuff like that.
And CSS, yeah, exactly. What is
CSX?
Yeah, CSX. What is this
CSX.
word? LAGNIAPPE.
That's right. So that's a great New Orleans word that's all over our site. It's pronounced lanyap. It's very peculiar to Southeast Louisiana. It's Mark Twain purportedly is the one who brought it to the American consciousness. But in New Orleans, it means it's a little extra, like a baker's dozen. You go to get 12 rolls at the baker. He throws in a 13th just to be kind. So Lanyap is just sort of a little extra, just for the fun of it, just because it's the nice thing to do. And so my dad used that word his entire life. I grew up hearing that word, and so on the site I use it as just a playful way to say sections of just kind of extra fun stuff, that whether it's kind of an artistic image or some interesting materials, but just sort of a little extra.
So what's the name of your YouTube channel?
It's Hawkins Rails. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's
Rails. And how did you guys come up with that name? Just because you're named Hawkins and it's Rails?
Yeah, I just was trying, when I got the idea of the site and started thinking about, it'd be fun to kind of launch a website. Never really had done that before. And it sort of seemed straightforward and fun, and nobody had that URL, so off we went.
I can't find. I put Hawkins Rails in on YouTube, and it's not coming up.
HawkinsRails.net is the
.net.
YouTube channel. Yeah.
Oh, .net.
So I've got.
Why is it .net?
Distinguish it.
Oh yeah,
because it's within the network.
Is that what it is? Well, most people, you just put a Hawkins Rails on there, and so I see there's a picture of you with your Jeep. Is that the only color of Jeep that was available?
God.
Man,
I don't think we're going to get to a part 2, are we?
Okay.
Well, we got it. You've only got 410 subscribers, so we got to change that. And you got 85 videos, and it's like, here's your most recent one is only 5 days ago, 3 months ago, the CSX Transportation 2024 Clinchfield Santa train. Where did you take that?
Well, didn't take it. We chased it. That's been a fun.
Well, I know, but I mean, where did you take the video?
Well, it's a compilation of clips my daughter filmed as we chased that annual train through the coal fields of Southwest Virginia, right? I'm sure some of you around this table have enjoyed that train over the years. We've sort of in the last decade, we've probably chased it 4 or 5 times. Great fun, amazing chase, and the old Clinchfield's a phenomenal piece of railroad. And
I chased it. The first time I chased it was with the Challenger.
I missed those years. I was too far south to catch those, but I've certainly heard tell. Yeah,
renumbered to a Clinchfield number. It was not an actual Clinchfield number, but 676, and that was amazing.
Yeah.
Years ago, I was interviewing somebody, and they told me the story of how they drove, 50 or 60 miles to see the CP Christmas train somewhere in northern Ohio. And I said, well, and he sent me a piece of video of taking it. And the thing never even slowed down. It went by like at about 60 miles an hour. And I'm like, you drove 50 miles to see that? Yeah, it was really cool. And I'm thinking, it never even slowed down. We actually, not far from my house, is a stop for the Christmas train. And actually less than a mile away is the CP mainline through southern Ontario. And this year they actually canceled the stop because there were so many people that they couldn't control the crowds. That's how popular it had become. There's a cool one here, this Blue Ridge Southern chase to Addie and return. So that's a cool video you got, 26 minutes. That's a pretty nice video. Who took that? Did you take that, or did your daughter take that?
No, that's my daughter. We were on the Blue Ridge Southern probably 4 years ago, before the mill closed. I think it's a lot less of a railroad than it was then, but great, beautiful Western North Carolina, of course. And we had a good couple days. Great Smoky Mountain Railway, of course, right down the line. And I was glad.
Yeah, and if you want anybody that wants to see it, but if you go, let's see, we'll start at Hawkins Rails, the home page, and then down the side, it's got steam, short lines, industrials, mainline, streetcars, and then it has, if you click on short lines, there's a list of short lines or different types of short lines, but near the bottom it just says all short lines, and then there's a very organized page in alphabetical order of where you can find your particular short line that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. I also have 2 other ways to get to places. I've got a states page, which breaks everything down by states. So if you're in Georgia, for instance, you can kind of see everything I've got in a particular state. And then I've also got, thanks to my wizard of a nephew, who, like I said, is a software engineer, he wrote me some phenomenal code that automatically builds an index of the entire site by city, by locality. And so I've got a massive index of places. So if you're thinking of a particular town or locality, you can search or you can index the site that way as well. So,
wow, that is incredible. I'm looking at the locations page now, and you can literally click on a state, and you can see an index of everything that was done there. So I'm looking in like Albany, Georgia, and there's like 13 different results for Albany, Georgia. Like, this is insane.
That's what I was looking at when I first made my comment about being blown away, as I was looking at the state page and just digging through everything that was available at each state. And just if you click on any one of them, and there's so much detail about, that short line or that museum or whatever it is. It's wild.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, Ralph, do you have any idea what you've done here? I don't
realize what you've done.
I don't think you understand what you've done here. I remember the first night I looked at it. After about an hour, I closed it. I thought, well, I can't just sit here looking at this because I'll never get off it.
And it makes me happy. That's one of my goals, is for enjoyment. My dad had a saying: hobbies should be fun, right? We all have enough drama at work and in our families and in the world. Hobbies ought to be fun, among other things. And so I believe that too, and want people to just enjoy either having their own experiences and memories rekindled, or hopefully learning, particularly for people not from the South. It's been a goal to kind of highlight some of the more interesting and fun stuff in the South, both currently and historically. One of the things I've been, being a resident of Georgia again, I went to grad school in Atlanta back in the 90s, but now I'm back here. One of the things I've been working on is documenting all of our tourist trades. I mean, you don't necessarily think of the state of Georgia as a tourist railroad haven, but right now we have 5 places in the state where you can take a really meaningful tourist railroad trip. And I think that's pretty cool. We don't have any steam running, but we've got some terrific diesel trips. And so I've been working on a Georgia Peaches collection in my preservation section that kind of highlights all of those, and really proud of that. I say proud as if I have something to do with it, but you know what I mean. It's remarkable to me that here in Georgia we've got all that going on. So
I was going to say you have 988 pages, but I noticed that the Georgia tourism railroads were missing. So I'm glad you're fixing that. That's good. Yeah. That was an obvious. What I'm really impressed by is I'm looking at a Western New York and Pennsylvania page, which again, not in the Southeast.
No, we're not limited to the South, even though that's kind of part of it.
And what's impressive to me is this is a great resource for somebody looking for a railroad to model, because I'm looking at a write-up of, you have a map from Trains Magazine, you have a description, you have pictures of operations, and you even link to the locations the photos are taken in Google Maps. So you can literally click a button from this picture, and then you can see on Google Earth exactly where this is, and then start to design a model railroad out of it. Like, this is this should be in the Library of Congress. Like, this is important.
I thank you for that feedback, because that is kind of a goal, is to equip especially modelers. And frankly, one of the reasons my dad and I have always loved short lines is because of that very point. They're so easily modelable. Is that a word? It's such a great source for a little railroad. And he wrote a couple articles over the years that reference that. An example of that in the South is the Alexander Railroad in North Carolina. Perfect little short line to model. You've got an engine terminal at one end and a mainline interchange at the other, and all these great industries, but it's a small enough railroad that you could actually literally, capture the whole thing. The Western New York and Pennsylvania, you could as well. It's a much bigger road. Great road, by the way. Derek, I think we talked about that last time. You and I had both been to Meadville, Pennsylvania, where the Alcos still roam. I understand they're not roaming as much as they were. I think they've gotten bigger power now, but what a terrific short line that is, with those belching Alcos. working
Yeah.
over those Allegheny Mountains.
I think a couple of the 6-axle Alcos ended up on the railroad that I model, the Delaware Lackawanna,
Oh, there you go.
over in Scranton. So they bought, I think they bought 3 of the pumpkin units that came down from Cartier. I think 2 of them are operational. One of them is for parts, but
Yeah.
Great railroad and beautiful scenery around it too, like mountains and trees and
Oh, yeah.
big
Yeah.
Alcos and
That part of Pennsylvania is rugged, really. And,
Yeah.
Lots
and
of plain gray hoppers.
right. Right.
All right, we got to end this. We got to end this particular podcast, but we're all going to come back tomorrow and finish this up with a little more in depth. I just want to finish with this particular story. The other day when I was coming north out of Toronto, I got in the lane and I got behind this lady that was going really slow. And I was relaying the story to my wife, and she said, "What did you do?" And I said, "Passed her."
Oh,
Nice. I see what you did there.
Yeah. All right, Ralph, that's the end of this particular podcast. And we didn't even scratch the surface of your whole life and everything, but we're going to come back.
How could we?
Well, yeah, exactly. And that's why we're going to have to come back tomorrow and do this again. So this particular, Kelly, can you give out our email address?
oh man, I'm so out of touch with that since I haven't been on for 3-4 months.
Yeah, because you've been
You
faking.
haven't been practicing since you've been
Yeah,
on.
like
No.
what were you doing in the
Jeez.
hospital? That would have been in the hospital. That would have been an ideal time to be practicing the email.
When you can't breathe.
I can do the email. I just can't do the
Why not?
one out because I don't have anything right now in my head. Plus, I'm mesmerized by this website.
Well, one L like
May I jump in?
no.
Fine.
No, you may not. Not even close. Kelly can do this if he tries.
If I try, One
it'd
L
be like one L like one L like anything with an L in it from a hospital words that have L's in them. That's what you could have been doing. That's what I was doing while I was in the hospital with my heart attack. Is I was practicing doing the podcast. I'd interview everybody that came in.
My wife said I was hallucinating when I was in the hospital.
You've been
2 L's like
2 L's like hallucinating.
Yeah, there you go. 2 L's like hallucinating. That
L's like
was
hallucinating.
perfect.
1 L like lung.
Yeah, 1 L like
one L
lung.
like
Lobotomy.
So, excuse me.
1 L like healthcare.
Healthcare, yeah.
Yeah. 1 L.
I can give-
1 L like final resting place.
Wow, look me off already. Oh.
Hey, I get to say that because I had a major heart attack.
So the website. Oh, geez, I can't even remember the website. Oh man, see, the lobotomy took it over. Modelerslife@gmail.com. That's 1 L. Modelers with 1 L like lung, not 2 L's like hallucinate.
That's perfect.
There we go.
We've tied in your medical adventures in with the email address. You see, I knew you could do it. That's why I didn't want David to jump in. David wanted to jump in and take over. That's 1 L like lung, not 2 L's like illness.
Yeah. Oh, illness. That's a good one too.
Exactly. That's 1 L like lung, not 2 L's like blood sample. And it goes on
it's good.
and on and on.
Yep.
I'm sorry you had to be part of this, Ralph. I apologize for you having to be part of this mess. But this is pretty much the way the podcast is. It's we did the rehearsals earlier today and yesterday, but this is the best we can do, even though we rehearse it. So we gave out the email address, and what do we do next? So yeah, and if you like this, and if you missed the email address, if you go to our website and click on the picture of the AML Nation's most eligible bachelor, boom, the address is there, and all you got to do is fill in your text. Although I'm not 100% sure that's working right now. By the time you listen to this, it'll be working. So forget that I said that. And on the website, it tells you all the episodes we've done for the last 6 months, and occasionally it tells you about episodes that are upcoming. But if you want to know about all the episodes we've done over the last 6 months, it's all right there on the website. And then there's a page about links. There's it's getting there. We got about 10 or 12 links, and that we started because it'd be stuff I wanted to remember, and I didn't know where to put it. So then I thought, well, I'll just make a links page. So that's kind of getting there, and there's all kinds of stuff. And if you like this particular podcast and you'd like to have twice as much podcasting every week, you can join our Patreon channel for just a few cents a day, and then you'll get a free podcast on Monday, and then you'll get another one on Tuesday, which is if you want to hear the second part of this, it's all you got to do is click on join the Patreon channel for a few cents a day. And then if you want to be, if you move up to the T-shirt level and you want to join the game that's sweeping the nation, Hey Dude, Where's My Shirt? You can do that and get a part of that. So it's great fun. Have I missed anything? What else do I got to talk about? Anybody?
I think that's it. You can buy a T-shirt on the website
is that working
tired.
now?
I think it is.
Okay.
We just haven't advertised it yet, but yeah, it's live.
I'm going to click on the store. Oh yeah, look at that! Boom! Look at there's mugs. There's an AML travel mug. There's shirts. We don't have the distressed one up yet, do we?
No, I think I was waiting on somebody to send me that in a hot dog shirt.
Yeah, but I sent you the oval that's is also in a distressed fashion.
I think you did. You know what? I think you did. Well, you should probably fire whoever's in charge of the website.
Yeah, I shouldn't do that.
Marginally adequate, as always.
Yeah, that's what we're going for, is marginally adequate.
By the time you listen to this, there will be a distressed T-shirt available to purchase.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, and there's mugs and all kinds of stuff. Anyways, we actually have a store on our website. That's pretty cool.
That's cool.
That is cool. Now we're done, I think, aren't we?
Yeah. Stick a fork in it.
Voted marginally adequate by 6 out of 10 model railroaders. The other 4 switched to N scale, and they are still trying to get their trains running. That's the AML store. I like that.
That hurts, doesn't it, Chris?
Yeah,
and David.
Yeah,
yes.
We got a lot of N scalers on this podcast.
Yeah, we got a lot of N scalers on this podcast.
You got one that works at N scale.
One that works at N scale. Have you gone back to work?
I'm actually going back to the plant tomorrow morning to talk to Joe. They're going to move me up front to the front office.
Yeah, that won't last
because
long.
I can't deal with the fumes from resin.
Okay.
So, but I'm going to be delayed.
And if we buy our N scale from you, we know it runs perfectly, because that's some good N scale right there.
Well, you don't have to pay an arm and a leg for it either.
That's true.
Kelly,
because it's made in the United States. Made in the United States. Even the HO trains that we get are made in the United States.
There you go.
You know, that's kind of a good point, Kelly. It used to be that I thought of micro trains as the expensive models, and it's not. And now it's not so much.
No.
Good point. That was our little political corner.
That's right.
All right. Which Kelly's been dying to talk about for years, but we never let him have his political corner. All right, that's it. So now, at the appropriate moment, Ralph, we need you to say "Happy Rails" to you. Now, the key is there's no dancing, there's no singing, there's no, there's no interpretation of any kind. Now, let me start that again. Now, the key is there's no dancing, there's no singing, there's no interpretation of any kind. What we need you to do is say with enthusiasm, "Happy Rails" to you. Do you think you can handle that?
I'll give him a best shot.
All right. Well, Ralph, as we close the barn doors on another episode of A Modeler's Life and the sun slowly sets over the back 40, I guess there's nothing else left to do except for you to say,
"Happy Rails" to you.
and Busted Knuckle, guests of a Modeler's Life podcast, stay at the Casa del Sol Motor Court and Inn, where late night dancing at the Rumba Room is a magical event to be experienced.
It's another Lincoln Homer.
Oh, see, I wanted you to do it with enthusiasm.
I think he communicated the gravitas of the situation.
The gravitas?
Yeah.
What's that word?
There's that word again.
That's a big word again. Jeez.
Right, you said ground toss.
What's the word? What's that New Orleans word you said, Ralph?
Lanyap.
Yeah, lanyard.
That's with one L, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
lanyard.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Ooh.
better than it.
Wow.
Hell like lanyap.